Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here at Campaign for America with John McCain. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about two very, very important topics that will impact your life, the lives of our children and our grandchildren. First topic we're going to talk about is the Great Divide. The Great Divide within the Republican Party. The war going on right now in every state across this country as to where the Republican Party is going. But maybe even more important than that is the information that was provided to us by our Florida Director of Campaign for America, Arnold Sherman. It is chilling. It is gut-wrenching. What we're about to share with you is factual. You'll be able to look this stuff up on the internet, but it's something that is certainly certainly impacting children around this country in their schools. You really know what's going on in those classrooms? Well, we're going to share that with you in a few minutes. But one programming note before we move on, our broadcast will not be aired the first 2 weeks of July. We'll be back July 21st. The reason, folks, is we are now going on the road. We said early in the year that we will be traveling around the country, and we will be traveling to do what? To help bring the America First message to the American people. So for the next 2 weeks, we'll be in Florida, and then we're coming back. We do have plans to go to Dallas and a couple of other cities and a couple of other states before we return to Florida in August. So let's keep all this in mind, and we'll keep you updated. Look, we'll come on the air from time to time during the day and do a little bit of a live broadcast. But I'd like to bring in now my co-host, John McCain. John, welcome aboard.
Hey, Steve, how are you this evening?
Yep, John, let's talk about the Great Divide. There is a great divide within the Republican Party. I was motivated tonight to discuss this topic because I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, to read a story in the New Jersey Globe by the editor David Wildstein, a story about the Senate minority leader in the Assembly here in New Jersey, John Bramnick, an article in which I thought was very, very well written, where John Bramnick has come on out and said, look, we've got to come together. We've got to start talking civilly to each other. We've got to work with each other. There's no other pathway to bringing the country together. So let's talk about that first, John. As you see it, where is the problem? And then let's talk about how we could solve it. And then we'll go on and talk about what's going on in the schools around the country.
Well, I think Mr. Bramnick's words are very wise. But it's not just for politics. It's for everyone. I think we all need to be civil to each other, whether it's in the Republican Party, within the Democratic Party, within your own home, within your party, what we've been seeing for the last 3 years is a purposeful attempt to divide Americans. You see it in the last presidential campaign. Households were divided, sisters and brothers not speaking to each other. We really haven't seen the likes of this since probably the 1850s. And that's caused a great concern. And the minority leader recognizes that the only way to stop this march of socialism in America is if particularly the Republican Party is that voice. The problem, of course, Steve, you asked me to define the problem. The problem isn't that simple. You're talking about personalities, personal fights in the Republican Party. It's challenging in the Republican Party, I would argue more so than the Democratic Party. You see the Democrats, even though they have a great divide, even today with Ilhan Omar's trying to blow kisses and make up with the Jewish Democratic colleagues in the House of Representatives, they seem to fall in line pretty easily. But the nature of being a Republican, if you believe in small government, individual freedoms and liberties, you tend to fall on the side of someone who's probably a leader themselves. So the challenge is how to be a leader in our party, in the Republican Party, amongst leaders. And that's significantly different challenge than the leadership of the Democratic Party. Now, what he's proposing needs to be said in order to achieve the goal of unity. Someone has to take the lead, as he did, and say the obvious. It needs to be done. And what do you do about it? Well, for those who won elections, it's incumbent upon those people to heal and reach out to their opposition from those primaries and those long-standing feuds amongst other leaders in the Republican Party. That's the only way it'll work. The people who lost the elections are mostly will be receptive to an invitation to participate and to have a voice. It's when the people who win these primaries and elections refuse to reach out to the people they just destroyed and beaten to heal those wounds. And until we have leadership that won elections that look at it that way, it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be the challenge. Well, and respect the process. You won, great. Reach out. You lost, move on, and participate. What's more important, your personal pride, or whether or not socialism takes over America?
Let's talk about the real leaders, which what I define as the real leaders of America or of any party are the people. Now, yes. I've had a lot of discussions this past week with a lot of grassroots Americans, Republicans, especially here in New Jersey. And I'm getting a sense that they're getting tired of the name calling. They're getting tired of the bickering. They're getting tired of and confused over a lot of mixed messages. Of course, false narratives coming from the other side, but the mixed messages coming from our side. And I've implored upon these individuals, and they're all well-meaningful Republicans. They're conservatives, and they want to see our country healed. But there's just too much emotion involved, if you will, John. I mean, the worst time I learned in the military and in police work, and I'm sure you learned it in your practice, the worst time to make a decision was when you're very emotionally involved, upset, angry, etc. So people need to take a step back, and they need to think of the common good of everyone. I did a lot of talking, a lot of studying about Lincoln, read a book called Team of Rivals, talked about him and how he dealt with his rivals, Reagan, Tip O'Neill. I mean, I could go on and on and on. The fact of the matter is that unless grassroots Americans in our party, the Republican Party, are willing to at least listen more and look for facts, look for factual, credible, actionable information, we're going to find ourselves in deep trouble. Now, saying that, I've had discussions with some church pastors, and this needs to be said, about a dozen of them over the past couple of weeks. And to a person, they've asked me, what can they do? They want to get involved. They want to get in the fight. And I've shared with them that they probably hold the most potent weapon that anyone can have on the planet Earth, and that is the Bible, the Word of God, prayer. Indeed, put your faith to work. But I've seen even what's happened with our houses of worship. They're coming, as one pastor said to me, and I hope to have him on the air with us, John, soon. They're becoming intermingled with politics. You know, my wife said this very clearly to me years ago. You're either going to serve God or serve man. Now, that doesn't mean that guys like you and I, because we're involved in the political governmental process, can't serve God. We do in our capacity. I believe everyone does. But there seems to be this let's say, a higher level of accountability and more honor, I would say, when you have the title of priest, pastor, minister, rabbi, or whatever. And so I actually told them, look, you need to concentrate on what God's given you. We need prayer. It's powerful, but they've been distracted. And when I shared that with them, it raised a few eyebrows in the positive sense. So my point is this: we all play a role somehow, some way in bringing healing to our nation. For a pastor, it's prayer. For all of us, it's prayer. But they meet, John, more people on a Sunday morning or whenever their worship services are in one day than we could meet in a month. So, yes, you're right, John. Our leaders need to stand up and speak out, but we need to be leaders, as we've said quite often, in our homes and bring that out into the neighborhoods. But also we need to, I tell you, use our heads a little bit more in thinking about how we're going to approach these things. Not everyone who's a Republican and disagrees. Think about this, John, and I'd love to hear you on this topic, who disagrees with the 100% ultra-conservative agenda is a bad person. Look, there are certain things in agendas that I disagree with, but overall, I am a conservative. I look at myself as a conservative moderate, especially when it comes to national security. I know how to deal with our enemies and our opposition, and there's certain things you have to do without compromising your principles for the common good of everyone. So what do you say about that, John? What do you say about Republicans, and you know a lot of them as I do, who are giving us 80% of the pie, but the other 20%, well, you know what? Roll the dice on it.
I still think it comes down to the leadership. When you have grassroots Americans, whether it's Democrats, Republicans, Independents, whatever, when you have them walking away from the political process, yeah, you're going to have some people on the fringe, on the edge, that want their issue and their issue only. Those are single issue voters and people who participate. You're always going to have that. But the idea is to capture as much of the voters who agree with you as possible, and be consistent with your message. And that's the issue. That's where the frustration starts. If you have Republican or any elected leaders sending out constant mixed messages, with what happens when the average person hears a mixed message? What's the first thing that happens? They don't trust the messenger. And that's on the leadership's role. Communication, I learned in college. I took a communications class a long time ago, and I had a very good professor. He said, listen, the art of communicating involves two people, senders and receivers. It is incumbent, he believed, on the sender to send out the message in a way that's understandable to the receiver. And if it's incoherent to the receiver, you have to figure out a frequency in which to communicate. Now, again, as I point out, it's human beings. You're not going to get everybody. But if you're on the grassroots America and you have an elected leader say, I voted for a bill, or I voted against a bill for this reason, and then come out within 24 hours later and say, well, but I didn't mean to. And they start walking things back because they may, for some reason in their own mind, may have made the wrong choice. But what does that tell the Republican base? Okay. And so the leaders have got to lead. And I don't mean lead by dictating. And that's what happens. Sometimes you get elected officials, Steve, that don't understand the subtle difference between engendering cooperation and support and telling people what to do. Sometimes that's lost. And maybe the grassroots needs to do a better job in selecting and vetting these leaders that we put into office. I think it starts there. But we're at a critical mass point in this country where if we don't organize and participate on the school board level, on the local level, and stop this march towards socialism, we're going to lose our country. So the leadership has got to send out the message correctly. It's got to be heard. It's got to be consistent. And then work. Don't just say thank you for your support. Work to keep that support. Demonstrate your competency, that you're not just saying things that you're going to do, that you're actually engaging in things that you're trying to do. You don't have to be successful. But the average voter who cares about this country, they just want to see someone fight and try. That's why Donald Trump was so successful. You put Donald Trump up in a primary, and think about that. We've talked about that before. He brought together 18 different people that were running for president in his party, and he brought that coalition together. And I had a quick conversation today with an old friend, liberal Democrat, not a socialist Democrat, and interesting background. She's Irish and Jewish. Okay, so an interesting perspective. And when we were talking, we discovered that we agree on many things, particularly concerning the Constitution of the country. And from her perspective, she said it's up to the Democrats on her side to also engage in this fight and stop the march of socialism. So it's a broad question, but the Republican leadership, and you could see it. You could see it now. It's already beginning along the lines of who's running for president. So that's a fight that we will always have. The primary process is necessary, but the grassroots people need to do a better job vetting who they support, and the leaders need to be better listeners and better senders of messaging, and work at their job, not just talk about being elected.
Well, when we get back in 2 weeks, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have on the air, hopefully, a Democrat leader, a national leader, who I had a discussion with on a national news media network just about 2 weeks ago. Now, what was interesting about this discussion, there was no anger. It was civil. And John, like you, this Democrat leader agreed with me more than disagreed with me. I discovered something. In fact, hopefully I'm going to talk to this fellow after tonight's broadcast. I discovered that the extremists are drowning the Democrat conservative voices out like the extremists, and we have extremists in the Republican Party are drowning our voices out. So we have to separate ourselves from people who are too extreme on the left and on the right. And as John said, unless we do that, folks, we're going to lose our country. Now, we're losing it now. John, you mentioned school board level. Well, here we go. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I just got this information tonight. We did some research. It's factual. It's out there. But here's some of the things that are being taught to children in schools around the country. And there's some schools we'll name, some we won't name until we get them vetted. But to begin with, the media has reported that the Grace Church High School in New York City have asked students to stop referring to their parents as mom and dad. And John, I'll go through about 5 of them. Let's discuss it, all right? William County schools in Tennessee showed students videos that promote and inspire teenagers to live non-binary lifestyles and question their gender identity. A California elementary school curriculum includes gender ideology that promised a positive, safe, and working space. An activities-based program that provides support and empowerment for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, queer, and questioning youth. Washington State elementary schools were teaching children about transgenderism. Parents were outraged after a first grade teacher taught students about a toddler boy who transitioned to live as a girl. First grade. Indians Public Schools started focusing on gender identity and discussed creating a transgender bathroom policy where in elementary schools. Now, these are 5 of about 20 I have. Now, let's stop here for a minute. Here in New Jersey, and I tweeted about this the other night, police officers on their police reports are no longer allowed to put male or female if the person says to put X. And John, we have a problem here in law enforcement in Jersey and across the country. When I was a police officer, a black man, white man, whatever color you are, whatever gender you are, breaks into a building, you put in the report and you give the description, white male, black male, female, male, whatever, running down the street away from the crime scene. You can no longer do that, folks. You're going to be putting down an individual identified as X will be running down the street. Now, what does the cop do? You're a lawyer, John. Where's the probable cause? What does a cop do? Stop anybody because now everybody's X? So socialism is on the march. Communism is on the march, folks. And now the identity politics, and we said this when we talked about the Confucius Institutes in our colleges, sooner or later, it was going to go down into elementary schools. Now, we got a lot more, but these are only 5 examples. And we'll be talking in a minute about how they're changing math to become a racial issue to be discussed in math class. So, John, what about these first 5?
Steve, this is lunacy, it's fringe, and it's grab control of the useful idiots that are running our schools. And I use the word useful idiots deliberately. It's not an insult. This is what Stalin and Mao referred to as people who follow their lead blindly. And useful idiots are people who are working against America's interests because they don't know any better. Their hearts may be, from their perspective, in the right place. But how does this ask a student to become better writer, better at critical thinking? How does this teach young people how to be confident in the world? This is a direct affront on individualism, which is what makes America what it is, as compared to the rest of the world, including other democracies. We're founded on an idea, this country. It's founded on principles. It's not founded on individuals, and it's not founded by people who are weak. what they're teaching, if they're teaching that to these students, where are the parents? Are the parents going to become useful idiots and allow this to happen? That's the challenge. If that was my school, and I have children, and if I had children in a school like that, I promise you they wouldn't be in that school very long. And as a lawyer, I have a little extra zip, as you point out. I would challenge it. I don't care if I lose. I was taught you fight. When something's wrong, you fight. My father taught me a story a long time ago. There was a young man, and we were playing a game of street hockey. And he was kind of the neighborhood bully. And he was calling out my mother because she wanted me to go to the store and interrupting the game. My father overheard it, and he said, "Why is that young man saying that about your mother?" And I said, "Well, why aren't you doing something about it?" And I said, that's who he is. My father said, "Well, you have two choices. You can go stand up for your mother, or you can deal with me." Needless to say, I chose the latter, the former rather, and confronted the bully and was successful. Paid a price later on the street, But you know what? You have to stand up and fight. You have to be willing to lose. You have to have no fear. Well, you've got to stop this lunacy that's going on in the schools. And the parents, the challenge is to the parents now.
Now let's talk about that. Now, we have reports here that students in Philadelphia, this is what's reported, all right, are taught to hate capitalism and to praise communism and its ideas like equity. Now, listen to this, folks. Philadelphia elementary school students were taught to celebrate Black communism and reenacted Black Power rallies. Fifth graders held signs that read Black Power, Jail Trump, Free Angela, and Black Power Matters. This is the reports now. This is some of the reports we've gotten. Philadelphia teachers' unions proposed a solution for systems of racial inequality. They advocated to overthrow the racist structure of capitalism, provide reparations for Black and Indigenous people, and uproot white supremacy and plant the seeds for a new world. Some Chicago schools teach and praise Angela Davis. Now, who is Angela Davis? We know her well, right, John? In the state of New Jersey. She's a communist and a criminal fugitive who supplied guns for the 1970 Marin Courthouse massacre. I believe she's still in Cuba, according to reports. And I happened to be on the turnpike the day Warner Forster, I believe that was the state trooper that was killed, that she had allegedly killed. California's new curriculum teaches that capitalism is a form of oppression. Now, folks, again, this is just a short list of what we have. In our elementary schools, at a very, very formal age, children are being taught how to hate America. They're being taught how bad and evil America is. It's just not about racism, folks. It's about capitalism. It's about freedom. It's about liberty. And talk to anyone who lived in a communist country who's here now, they will tell you without batting an eyelash that we are on our road to communism. And so, John, when I asked these people from communist countries the question, what can we do to stop it? They said what you just said. The parents have to step up and speak out. And John, I've got to tell you, here in Nutley, New Jersey, I met with a group. Well, you were with me, okay? We were with a small core group, and it's growing in numbers, where parents are now going to take control of some of the political processes in this community. And they're going to stand up, and they're going to start to run people for office. Now, I got to tell you, John, what is discouraging is when I hear parents say, well, it's Saturday morning. Well, it's Monday night. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. Well, look, folks, you've got to do what you got to do. But just remember this. When the communists take over, you will do what they tell you to do. It is simple as that. Now, John, I was on a school board. I was elected to a school board, and I found it how it was incredible that the people of the communities who are electing school boards have given up, or shall I say, surrendered their power to a group of 9 people and a superintendent of schools. They've actually surrendered their power. Now, in this community and others, there are recalls now going on to throw some people out of office. But it really comes down to what Reagan said. It begins at home, and people have to stand up. Now, before I hand it over to you a minute, John, for those who are asking the question, and let me just see this a minute here. We got some questions coming up. Well, then how do we stand up? Well, you stand up by organizing 5, 6, 7 people. We will help you. By the way, John, I did get a call yesterday from a parent who wants 20 people in a room where you and I are going to have a Zoom session with them. What do you think of that? And get them going. And that's what we're going to do, folks. We're going to get this to a point where people can meet with us. We'll guide them, supply them with most of what they need, talk with them, and then get them to engage the socialist communist agenda being advanced by a Democrat Party that has been hijacked by the socialists and communists. And now, let me add this one more little bit of thing to think about. John, they got away with, the socialists and communists, got away with hijacking the Democrat Party. They're not through yet. They're coming for us.
Yeah, well, President Trump said, this isn't about me. He said, they're coming for you, is what he said. Now, you just read some information, Steve, and you were quoting what they said. This is their words. Their words, and you've been saying this, and I've been saying this for years, the educational process for them and the whole the whole attack of racism is just a tool to undermine and take over America. They don't even believe it themselves. It's just a weapon that they use. Now, if this was America of Jim Crow era, where you had what lawyers are referred to as de jure discrimination, that's systemic racism. When you have laws that divide people by their color of their skin and by their gender and so forth. When you have de jure discrimination, that's real discrimination. That's Jim Crow before Brown versus Board of Education in the 1950s. That's not America today. Look at how far we have come in America in that department. Look at the black middle class. Okay, look at the number of people who have immigrated from America, from East Asia, that have come in and done very well. The parents need to understand, if you just pointed out, if we don't stand up for our kids, then we get the country we deserve, Steve. And that's what I'm afraid what's going to happen. Organizing is simple. Yeah, pick up the phone. Today it's even more simple, because you can simply send a text, a group text, email chain, and so forth. These people that are running these school boards, that are putting in these lunatic, anti-American, anti-child parent, ideas, if we don't stand up, they're going to destroy the parent-child relationship. If you haven't read Orwell, I encourage you to read 1984 in Animal Farm. You can, if you can't read, you don't have the attention span to read, there's vignettes and movies on YouTube that you can watch. Okay, please read this stuff or watch it, because what they're doing is destroying our society, and they're undermining now the parent-child relationship. They're trying to separate the parent from their children, and in some cases they're being successful.
Well, I've discussed that issue with people who lived in Soviet Russia, who lived in other communist countries, Chinese students who are here now that left communism. And once the socialist communists begin to break the authority of the parents and replace that with the authority of the state, then you've got some problems in your home, and that's what's happening. Now, anyone out there watching, do you believe that first graders to sixth graders, for example, should be taught about the virtues and the benefits of defunding the police? Do you think that should be going on? What happened to civics? Teaching about our Constitution, American history, reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's being replaced by an ideology that has been brought to us by the socialist communists of this country. Now, folks, again, the second largest teachers union in the United States, in Los Angeles, they published a paper calling to defund the police. And that paper also includes, we're being told, includes recommendations for curriculum to teach students as young as 7 years old that the police routinely target Black Americans. Routinely target Black Americans, folks. And that the police are not your friend, that the police are an arm of the government, and on and on and on. Now, let me say this, folks. There is no way I will ever believe that the police in this country target anybody. let alone Black Americans. We go out, we do our job. A person who commits a crime, shoots someone, whether they're black, white, or whatever, they're criminals, and the police are after the criminal. But John, to your point about this, think about this. So now our students are being taught that the cops are going after Black Americans. Now the Black kids in these schools, they're going to be shaken to the core. They're going to worry about walking down the street, not being shot by a criminal, but by a cop. And what does that do? It divides, folks. It divides. It causes anger. It causes division. It causes racial tension. It causes what? It causes one to look at the state as their savior, not their parents. And it causes one to look at the good guys as the bad guys. And who's going to come to the rescue? The guy sitting in Beijing, folks. The guy sitting in the former Soviet Union. But the guy sitting right now in the White House of the United States of America. Those people are the ones that are creating the great divide. Those people are creating the racial tension in this country. And you know where there's systemic racism, folks? John, we hear every day there's systemic racism in the police ranks. You want to know where it is, folks? It's in the elected leadership of this country. Yes, systemic racism is running through the halls of Congress and certainly all over in every room, in my view, of the White House. Because anyone who supports the agenda of the Democrat Socialist Party of this country does not, in my view, support this flag and what it represents. Now, people get angry when I say that. I never question anyone's patriotism. And I won't question anyone's patriotism if they're standing on the principles of the Constitution of the United States. But John, these individuals who are pushing this Democrat, socialist, communist agenda, in my view, and you can speak for yourself, is the most un-American thing they could do. Most un-American thing they could do is replace education of America, its heritage, its legacy, its history, and its wonderful Judeo-Christian values, replace all of that with an ideology that is out there to destroy this country, to take our freedoms generation after generation. Those people are not, in my view, American patriots.
Steve, all that is true. But communism, totalitarian dictatorship is more than just being anti-American. It's being anti-human. It's being anti for humanity. Our spirit, the spirit of humanity, is to be free and to be able to do what we want to do, of course, without hurting others. Okay, but to be able to go out and achieve a good life, the right to pursue happiness. Okay, totalitarian regimes destroy that. Totalitarian regimes. So when you destroy that, you're not just destroying America. You're destroying humanity. It's bigger. It's bigger than our country. Okay, so it's not a stretch. It's actually on point. If you understand how a totalitarian system works, you cannot argue that point any other way. Now, if you don't know about it, of course, you could say whatever you want to say, but it's an uninformed opinion. That's what they're doing. Look at what you just described they're doing to children. They're destroying their humanity. They're brainwashing. What's different of what those kids are being taught today by those school boards than what's being taught by Hamas when they teach the kids to hate the Israelis from the get-go? That's the same principles. That's the same treatment of children. That's a crime in my mind. That's a vicious attack on the human spirit and soul, not just our country. And it's pernicious, in my opinion. And if we're not careful, we will lose the country unless these parents stand up for their kids.
Okay, folks, as we wrap things up, a couple of things. Everything we said tonight, we're going to have we're creating a report. Our intelligence reports, we send out about 10, 15,000 every couple of months. But everything we said tonight is going to be on a report, and it's yours for free. We send PDF documents out to anybody who wants them. You want a copy so you can share with your friends? You see on the screen, campaignforamerica.com. Go to that. That's our website. Go to where it says contact page. Just put your name and your email. I don't need anything else, all right? We're not going to be asking you for contributions, donations. Our goal here at Campaign for America is to inform the American people as to what is happening to this country and how you need to rise up and speak out and stand up and get involved. So there it is, campaignforamerica.com. Right after this broadcast, go to that website. There's a contact form, just your name and your email. We'll get this out to you in a couple of weeks. That's number one. Number two, it is imperative that people begin to stand up. All I'm getting here is how do we do it? How do we get there? So I'll repeat it again. John and I and the team that we work with, we have committed ourselves to do what Ronald Reagan did in his time, a very aggressive fight against the socialists and communists, and a very, very aggressive stand for President Trump's America First agenda. It works hand in hand. We took Ronald Reagan's playbook and we shaped it into what we're doing here. Now, Campaign for America does have a candidate that we're going to support, and I'm going to introduce you to that candidate right now. We have a candidate who's never lost a political battle, who stands firmly on the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States and never compromised, a candidate who has been in every war of this country and won. That candidate is right here, folks. This is our candidate, Oh Glory. And so we are going around the country talking about our candidate and how this candidate is going to not lead from the rear and give us double talk, but how this candidate is going to lead from the front and give us the words we need to continue to keep America free, to keep America strong. Now, how can you help us? Here's how you can help us. One, pray for us. I believe in the power of prayer. This country was guided by God Almighty, that the quill pens that our founders had, they prayed and they were guided by God to create the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. First and foremost, pray. Second of all, put your faith to work. Put your faith to work and get involved. And call us. We got our number on our website. Email us. Go to our website, and we'll send you the information you need. And John, as you said, we're ready, right, John, to enter everybody's home via Zoom. And at times we'll even go there personally and encourage people to have breakfast meetings, brunches, whatever, and we'll do everything we could to get there. And John, I know you've come to a few, and they've been pretty interesting.
They've been interesting. There's energy, and of course the challenge is maintaining that. And you brought up a point earlier in this evening's broadcast about people. Well, it's a Saturday; they're in their busy lives. That's what the socialists count on. They count on indifference. Nobody voted for this stuff. When was there ever a school board election, or when people who ran for the school board said, hey, you know what we're going to do? I'm running for school board, and I run on the platform of teaching your children, okay, that police officers are racist, that America was founded on racist principles. Whoever ran on a platform like that, whoever in America did that, what the socialists do is they count on the parents and good Americans paying attention to their lives and their economic liberty and freedoms and distract them. That no one's ever run on that platform. That once they get in, they start doing what they didn't tell you that they were going to do. And the next thing you know, you wake up and you go, how did this happen? Well, it happened because America, cares about their kids. They're coaching Little League. They're coaching volleyball, girls softball, whatever it is. They get involved with their kids' lives on that level, and they trust their neighbors, okay, with their children's education. But they didn't verify. So this agenda was never run on by anyone. Who ran on that platform in America? Show me anyone that ran on that platform. Now, it's so in the open, you may start to actually see that. You may start to see that in places like Seattle, okay, where socialists are pretty much ingrained into the voting process now. You may see that later on in California. But I'd go to a school board meeting. Let's start with that. Have the parents go to the next school board meeting and ask the question, why didn't you tell me when you ran for office you were going to do this? Let's ask that question to the people who are elected now. Let's ask these questions to the school board members. How can you support this? Why didn't you tell us that you were going to support this? Why didn't you do that? And watch and see how they answer it. Okay, and Steve, they're coming for the kids, for their minds and hearts, and then they put the parents in jail. And you know who rats them out under the totalitarian communist system? Their own children.
Yep.
Read 1984.
Yep.
1984 was not an allegory. It was a repeat of the Russian. It was written by someone who was intimately involved in the Russian Revolution and watched it happen. It made a prognostication on what was to come. And the book is striking. It was required reading when I was in high school.
Well,
now they hide the book. They don't even want the kids to read that book anymore.
Well, the good news, John, here in New Jersey, especially and around the country, but particularly here in New Jersey, it looks like we now have a seat at the table of some of the county GOP's leadership to talk and to discuss what you and I discussed tonight with regard to helping them on how to get out in front of this, unite the party, not just for the sake of the party, but for the sake of the country. Correct. Because every state, it counts. All 50 of us count. We can't leave any state out. So I thank God we've been able to make that progress. I'll tell you, it took a long time to get that, maybe convince that the establishment, if you will, that we're not a threat. We're not a threat to anybody but to communists and to socialists. And so, like I said, we took Reagan's playbook and we kind of figured out how he did it. And we went down that road and we're getting responses now. We need to listen. We need to work together, stop the name calling, stop all the distractions, and let's move forward and do what we must do to keep America united. And that's what John, myself, and many others are doing around this country. So that's it, folks. So, John, we're going to be gone for a couple of weeks. You got anything to say before you're going on a little vacation here for a couple of weeks? It's been really enjoy having you. I could tell just by the remarks we're getting. They're very good remarks.
Well, I want to say, because we will be away, happy birthday, America.
Love it. Love it.
All right. Happy birthday, America. It's a birthday that needs to be celebrated. We should play the national anthem loud. We should have fireworks and celebrate. Okay. And we need to reflect that if we want to keep the 4th of July as a holiday, okay, we need to now fight and defend freedom in America from fellow Americans now.
Well, and John, you're right. And shame on those politicians who are canceling 4th of July festivities in their cities. But we'll deal with that next time. All right, folks. So we're off for 2 weeks. Please stay in touch. I'm going to come on from time to time, maybe with a live stream. And John, I think there's a way we may be able to do that on one of the platforms. So who knows? From time to time, we'll do that. But there's our website. Just go to the website, go to the contact page, get to us, folks. We'll get you all the information we talked about tonight and much more. Thank you all for joining us here at Campaign for America. God bless you. God bless America. And remember, at the end of this journey on this earth, the chief end of man, of all of you, men, women, and children, is what? Is to love and to glorify God forever. Have a great evening. Thank you and good night.